Right, everybody, we have some new Resident Evil 9 or Resident Evil Apocalypse, which is a working title, leaks, and I deem them to be fake, personally. I think they're a load of bull. But yeah, so I'm going to get into the leaks and then we're going to sort of like go on and expand on why I think they're fake. So, working title, Resident Evil Apocalypse, subject to change, definitely. That was leaked with that Capcom data mine, so I think that's subject to change, definitely. The setting is a ghost town in the Midwest where a certain investigation will take place. Caves, river, small town and camping sites are locations. Enemies will look like some kind of deformed creatures with huge emphasis on body horror. They'll resemble mythological creatures with horns, and locals will call them wendigos or goatmen. Enemies will be mimicking human voices and could even transform into friendly NPCs. So they can basically disguise themselves as NPCs that you've met and then attack you. They can perfectly mimic human voices, and the player will be forced to look at the behaviour to know their enemies. That's interesting, it's cool, but it seems like they've ripped that from Until Dawn. Monsters can get close to a player appearing as friendly NPCs if that person died and the player didn't see it happening, or see it happen. Forest is creepy and unsettling. It's easy to get lost without a map. Sometimes you'll hear somebody walk behind you. They put that somebody, so it's a type of error. But the creature isn't there when you turn around, and sometimes it's there for real. The player can force some doors to open, lock them and barricade, and also use breakable melee weapons. One of the early bosses is Barghest. It's a giant black dog with a twist, but less intelligent compared to other monsters. And one of the main antagonists will be a woman named Gleistig by the locals. She has a really beautiful design with green and gold ornaments and morning green gown. Player will receive help from a woman, a bioweapon named Holder. That's interesting. She'll serve as a guide through the forest, tell you some of the town's history when you show her some treasures, keys, puzzle pieces you find along the way. She will also teach the player different herb combinations. There will be 7 herb types which can be combined with each other to achieve various effects. The monsters fear this woman just as they fear and respect Gleistig, and won't come close. This serves as an explanation why they can't enter save rooms and zones. The plot will be about the 9th moon phase, and the nickname Apocalypse came from that idea. The moon serves as this game's symbol and probably will appear on a logo. Right, sorry for the jittery stop and start read through of that. It's got a few typos in it. I had to make do and rearrange some stuff. Right, so why do I think this is fake? It basically sounds like they're borrowing stuff from Until Dawn. They're going with the folklore angle, which sort of 8 had, running with that, kind of off on their own tangents. And to me, it just sounds like a load of bullshit. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think this is real. The thing that sort of sparks my interest in terms of a sequel for Resident Evil 8, because I wasn't Resident Evil 8's biggest fan. It's the ending, the twist ending, where Chris captures, or his team captures, this bioweapon that's made to look humanoid, very humanoid, but it's a BSAA member. And that interested me fully. Like, you can take Resident Evil 8 story and throw it in the bin. The game was okay. I enjoyed the game play side of it, some bits and pieces of it, and it did have some heart, definitely, with Ethan in that story. It's the first time Resident Evil's sort of taken on maybe a story like that, and had a bit of drama, but it's like family drama and finding out the twist with Ethan and things like that. It was quite well handled, in parts, I would say in parts, but overall the story was a pile of shit, in my personal opinion, personal preference at the end of the day. And I don't like where the series is heading, and I'm bored of all this kind of mystical crap and all the rest of it. So that twist ending in 8 kind of brought it back to bioweapons and the intrigue and mystery and things like that from the older games. I was on board. I was like, yeah, I want to go with Chris to find out why the BSAA have these like humanoid looking bioweapons and stuff like that. Now, I don't know if Shadow of Rose will explain that, or there's going to be some more DLC. I don't think there is, but I thought that maybe Resident Evil 9 would be Chris taking on the BSAA, or at least going to investigate the BSAA headquarters. This doesn't sound like it has anything to do with the BSAA or anything to do with that ending, in my personal opinion. Maybe it could do. maybe they built their offices and headquarters in a Midwest town. I don't know, but all the rest of it doesn't really line up or add up. You know, here they say there's going to be like this, this giant sort of enemy that's like a dog, very similar to this giant enemy, werewolf sort of enemy from Resident Evil 8. It was like this sort of on all fours werewolf type of enemy. I can't remember the name. I really can't. Like I said, I wasn't that into the lore of RE8. I just enjoyed the gameplay. But yeah, like they're gonna have something that's like that. But that's easily sort of borrowed from Resident Evil 8 and then just changed a little bit. That's why I think that's definitely fake. Like, I think all these leaks are fake, personally. I would say though, like, obviously coming with names and stuff, like Holder, that's interesting. Like a woman who's also a bioweapon named Holder. That's interesting how they've got sort of like these, you know, these specific names. A Burgest, you know, the woman called the main antagonist. Oh, Gleistig. Okay, so Gleistig as well. Like, these are all specific names and stuff that they've come with, and that's quite interesting. Yeah, they can be made up, but I will say that one thing that maybe holds weight with these leaks, even though I think they're fake, would be the names, definitely, because they're very specific. However, if you do a Google search of Gleistig, you will actually find a photo and an image of this woman with a green sort of like gown and blonde hair. So that sort of shows you that these are probably fake. Yeah, someone's literally gone, folklore, Gleistig, because they know their folklore. They go on, they see a picture, and you get loads of images of Gleistig. And the Gleistig is a ghost from Scottish mythology, a type of Falth. I think that's how you pronounce it. So there you go. Barghest. The Barghest in Northern English folklore is a monstrous black dog with large teeth and claws, though in other cases the name can refer to a ghost or household elf, especially in Northumberland and Durham, such as the Called Lad of Hilton. So yeah, loads of English folklore there. But again, like I said, it's easily search these things, and people can easily take those and put them in a fake leak post on 4chan. I forgot to say these are from 4chan as well, so you know. So I do think these are fake, definitely. I think that, you know, Gleistig sounds just like Mother Miranda, a little too similar. And one thing about Resident Evil 7 to 8 is the enemies have been very different, vastly different. But I don't kind of understand why Capcom would go in that direction. I don't think they're going to go in that direction. I think that 8 was this interesting kind of bastard child of the series, definitely, along with many other Resident Evil games. It changed direction completely from RE7. It went in a completely different direction, and I feel like if they were going to make an RE9, they're going to bring it back to like 7, or at least have little elements of, you know, stuff from 8 just to sort of tie them together. I don't think they're going the full folklore route, because I don't think 8 actually did as well as some people make out. A lot of people fight its corner, and that's fine. It's all personal preference. But for me and a lot of other fans, it wasn't very Resident Evil. It didn't do Resident Evil very well. You know, it was a fun game, not taken away from that. And when it did have the mansion parts, or the castle, Demetrius, you know, her castle, she's chasing around, all that stuff was cool. And then sort of away from that, it was this completely different beast. So I don't think that they would continue on. I think they'd do something different anyway, completely different. I feel like this is too close and too similar to RE8. That's the problem, and that's why I think these are fake. I don't think that Capcom are going to do the same thing over again. They've already done that. Like, people tend to get bored and move on, and I feel like Capcom have done that, and they're going to leave that where that is and then move on to something different and something new. I could be mistaken, you know, this could all be true, but I doubt it very, very much. Wendigo's taking form of an NPC. That's kind of what a Wendigo can do, you know, its powers and things consist of that. But I will say one thing, just imagine how annoying that's going to be. Like, imagine that you'd have to backtrack or just walk around and go to other areas where you'd met these NPCs to find out if they were still alive or not. Like, I don't think that's going to lead to an interesting or fun gameplay experience. I think that's going to be kind of jarring, irritating, annoying, backtracky, all the rest of it. Well, I do think it's creepy and a great horror device to have a Wendigo sort of speaking like a human or someone you know, and you go there and then it fucking attacks you. I don't think that's I don't think that's going to be in the game. I really don't. If they did, they could have made a bioweapon that could mimic people's voices. That would have been cool. But like I said, I feel like RE9 is following on from the RE8 twist, the plot twist, definitely. If it doesn't, I mean, I'm not saying that Capcom haven't continued threads, because they haven't. They haven't continued some threads. Revelations 2, you know, after Code Veronica, they kind of just skipped a whole load and started with 4 and, you know, said that Umbrella dissolved and whatnot. So they do this. They do kind of, you know, leave twists and plot lines and move on. But I have a funny feeling that RE9 is going to continue on from that plot point. Now, yes, that plot point can still be present around sort of the structure of this, you know, this leak. I mean, I think that RE9 is going to take place in North America, in the BSA headquarters, and you could get Chris back, because apparently some of the leaks said that Chris and Jill are going to be the main characters or something along them lines. You could have Chris and Jill come back to the BSAA headquarters, because that's, you know, their headquarters and stuff, and even them bring in Barry or Rebecca or who else. Do you know what I mean? It holds more weight with the story, definitely, and it being like the last game. If this is true, if this is like straight up true, this is going to be disappointing as a final entry in the canon, in the series. It's going to be hugely disappointing, in my personal opinion. Because it's like Capcom just went on a tangent after RE7. RE7 was, like, so good. Like, the story, the callbacks, all the Easter eggs to the older games, but doing its own thing. Then they went in a completely different direction, off on a tangent with RE8, and I feel like RE9 is going to go off on an even weirder tangent and do, like, weirder shit. I think when it started incorporating stuff from Akira and, you know, with Rose's kind of soul split into parts and what other stuff, and Miranda being able to fly around like she was a Final Fantasy, you know, boss, villain. Yeah, just some of the stuff was like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, it was weird. So I didn't really care for that very much. And then Heisenberg turns into a giant transformer, mutates into this huge sort of transformer essentially, and that was just ridiculous. But I did like the punch in the boulder reference, definitely, but then, you know, that's something that's laughable from RE5, so yeah, whatever. That's the problem with Resident Evil. It's almost like Alien Resurrection, where it's become a parody of itself. That's the problem. 7 wasn't a parody of itself, definitely. It took itself seriously, but RE8 and 6 and like there's tons of games always like it's like a parody of the Resident Evil series, the older games. Like here, this is the thing. It says enemies will look like some kind of deformed creatures with a huge emphasis on body horror. Well, yeah, that's pretty much Resident Evil. That's always been a staple of Resident Evil. William Birkin, the Chimera, everything, right? Loads of monsters, yeah, in the Resident Evil series have always had these body horror elements, and they've always been deformed creatures. So when covering that sort of stuff, when reading that as a fan, I'm sitting there going, well, duh, like, that's easy stuff. Like, anyone could have written that. That's why I think these are fake, because anybody could have written that. Like, within Resident Evil, there's always been sort of like deformed human enemies that you know, have body horror attached to them. So yeah, it's, like I said, I call bullshit on these leaks, definitely. And the plot will be about the 9th move phase. I think that's probably taken from something factual. Again, this is a little too mystical, you know, for my liking. It's a little too over the top, like the 9th move phase. This is moving so far away from a pharmaceutical company that creates bioweapons. It's getting ridiculous. So I don't think Capcom are going to get that ridiculous, and it almost moves away from the lore too heavily. Whereas at least 8 sort of tried to connect to the lore in a bad way. Definitely flopped, like when it came to that stuff. But it still tried to connect a little bit. So having this 9th moon phase and all the planets align and it's an apocalypse, and that's a little too weird. It's a little too mystical and so far removed from anything Resident Evil. So I call bullshit on that, definitely. And obviously this person, whoever's come up with the leak, is taking a lot from the folklore of RE8 and the mystical stuff like within folklore, and then go past a certain limit, which I don't think RE8 sort of overstepped. It did in some ways, it did in other ways, but I think it'd be a little bit too boring for Capcom to do that. You know, every idea that's come from a Resident Evil after the old series has always been different. The gameplay might not have changed, say for 4, 5 and 6, but the ideas are always quite different. You know, one took place in Africa, the next took place in China. You know, there's always been different settings. RE4 took place in in Spain. You know, there's always been these different settings. Ouroboros was introduced in RE5. You know, all these, like Wesker came back, the story was completely different from like 4. They've always done these different things. Like 6 was this sort of global, you know, storyline, took place around the globe. And then we have 7 that was almost like Chainsaw Massacre, and it took place in Louisiana, completely different setting from the last few games. It was more self-contained as a story and an environment and things like that, so it kind of brought everything back to sort of Resident Evil's roots a little bit and expanded upon it. And then RE8 was this completely different beast that had all these mystical elements and things like that, and you know, introduced folklore and things into the series, but had almost like tangible answers to why there was werewolves and vampire women and things like that, or at least it tried. It tried and kind of failed. And then you have the Revelations games. Let's look at Revelations 1. Completely different to Revelations 2. Revelations 2 almost is like a sequel to RE5's storyline. You know, kind of. It connects to RE5 in some way with Ouroboros reappearing. But RE Revelations 1, that was a completely different game. That was like its own thing. And then RE Revelations 2 introduced Natalia and soul swapping and things like that. I'm not saying Resident Evil hasn't got crazy over the years. I'm just saying that it was completely different. So I don't think that Resident Evil Apocalypse, as it's titled at the moment, I don't think it's going to be about this. I don't think these leaks are genuine and true. That's my take on it. If they are, I'll make a video and say, hey, I was completely wrong. Wow, didn't see that coming. But I think that RE9 will probably take place and revolve around the BSAA, you know, and their headquarters, Chris and Jill investigating and stuff like that. This sounds like it's like Silent Hill or, you know, the Blair Witch game. Environments like caves, rivers, small town and camping site, that's cool. That could be like one location, definitely. But at the same time, it doesn't really scream to me the end of the series, you know, going out on a high with a bang, etc., etc. Like that doesn't scream to me like this is the end of the series, the canon. It just doesn't. Like we know that Capcom always have to finish their games like on a high note, you know, whether it be Resident Evil 8 or Resident Evil 4, it doesn't matter. They always have to have a big, bombastic, grandiose ending to the games. And I don't think that a small town on a camping site really fit that criteria for RE9 as locations. I could be completely wrong. Maybe it's a certain location, definitely. It's interesting, like how it's laid out and stuff, definitely. But it just seems like they've already done that, really. They've already done that with Resident Evil 4 and Village. They've already had these type of locations. So I don't think Capcom are going to do that again. I really don't. So, you know, we could go on and on, but I think that these are fake, definitely. They are probably taken from loads of different sources and loads of different games and compiled to make this leak, this latest leak, this new leak. And I don't think RE9 is going to be about this or look like this. I think it's going to be something completely different, a completely different beast. Some leaks suggested that the game would have older characters coming back into the fray. It was going to be sort of like global, almost like Resident Evil 6, I believe one leak said. And it would be taking place before the ending, the true ending of RE8, so before we see a grown-up Rose. So yeah, it was still going to have like young Chris, or at least middle-aged Chris, and then Jill was coming back, and we might see Claire, Leon, etc., etc. So I kind of believe that it will be more of a global storyline, like more of a global setting. So yeah, I don't think these are real. I don't think they would scale it back like that for the last entry in the series canon. I really don't, and that seems like it's extremely scaled back. And like I said, on top of that, it just seems like he's taken things from Until Dawn or the Blair Witch game or folklore in general, etc., etc. So I think these are fake. If they're not, and I'm proven wrong, hold my hands up and I'll admit it, like, and say, okay, I'll make a video and we'll go through, like, and I'll say, yeah, I was wrong. Well, I was completely wrong. But anything from 4chan, you definitely take with a grain of salt, 100%. And I don't deem these to be real. I really don't. I don't think that Capcom would continue with something that's so similar to RE8. I think they move in a completely different direction. The ending in RE8, the twist ending, moves in a completely different direction. Even from when the BSAA arrive in the village, you know, and Chris is sort of fighting through the werewolves and stuff, and there's little sort of hints and stuff and story elements happening in that part, and then the twist ending of that BSA agent, you know, who's like a bioweapon, that moved completely different from the story that we were experiencing. It went in a completely different direction. It wasn't too jarring, but it started to set the path of the next game and the story in a completely different direction, away from RE8 and RE7, like Ethan's storyline. So that's where I think that the next game will continue onwards. Though, I will say, I could be wrong, because Capcom have in the past just moved away from like plot lines. Like Natalia's never been explained, never, touched upon after that. So yeah. So we'll have to see in the coming months, but yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think these are fake, real? What are your thoughts on it? And yeah, if you like the video, smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you like me as a content creator. I need more subs. And until next time, I've been System Check 66. I'm out of here. Peace.